another panel. This one's on starting a non-profit, and you've heard from a few people who have started non-profits. Jamie started a non-profit. Susanne started a non-profit. Dave has not started a non-profit, but he advises people on non-profits. I've started a non-profit. I'm on a non-profit. But what does that mean? And I think possibly some of you are thinking, I'm going to start a non-profit for my thing. And that can be intimidating, especially when you don't know even the first step, especially when it's different state to state. So I wanted to just get this panel together to talk a little bit about what that looks like, what you need to do, what you need to think about, possibly why you need to not start a non-profit. So I'll start with Dave. What's that thought process that needs to go into before you even start the process of opening a non-profit, starting a non-profit? What are some of the questions you need to ask yourself?
I think that's one of the big ones is, should you, right? I think that's the first thing to look at is there's so many out there, right? And that's a big mistake people make with businesses. Like, hey, people love coffee, I'll make coffee. That's harder because so many people are making coffee, right? So many people are doing food trucks, so I'll do a food truck. Then it's hard because so many people are doing it versus doing something completely different. Is this going out over and over again?
Sounds like it.
Okay.
Swap it.
So I think it's looking at competition, and that might seem like a weird thing in nonprofits, but if somebody's already doing it, support them, or help them, or work for them, or partner with them. Don't start another one. So I think that's one of the biggest problems. There's nonprofits on top of nonprofits on top of nonprofits on top of nonprofits, and they're all trying to do good things, but there's probably somebody already doing it. I worked with the Literacy Council. Yeah, it's me. So I worked with the Literacy Council one time in Oklahoma City, and all they did was help the other literacy councils work together. They weren't trying to help anybody learn to read. There was already enough people trying to help people learn to read. They were trying to help the people, helping the people learn to read, do a better job of it, because they realized there was already kind of too much of it. So I think that's the biggest one is, do you need to? I'll give you, my quick advice, and I think you're about to hear it from other people as well. Don't start a nonprofit. Matt said I've advised nonprofits, but I've also run nonprofits, managed nonprofits, been an executive in nonprofits. And it's terrible. And here's why. Because you care about something. Let's go pets, right? Because we've been talking a lot about pets. You love pets, and you want to help pets. Not cats. I can't get on board with that, and I don't have to bow to the pressure like Joe does. Cats are the worst. So you like pets. So you're going to start a charity. You're going to start a charity for pets. And here's what you're going to spend 99% of your time doing: raising money. So you spend all your time. You're not going to help pets at all. You're not going to spend time with pets. You're not going to work with people who have pets. You're going to spend all your time trying to raise money. And so here's my simple advice. Do something to make yourself successful, and take the money that you make and use it to help pets. Whatever you care about, be successful in some other way or in some way related to that. Get a really good job, start a really good business. The reason to start a business instead of a nonprofit is the paperwork and the load and the difficulty and the complications and the requirements are so much less. You can start a business right now. You can right now go, I just started a business, and you did. You can't say right now, I just started a nonprofit. Because you can't. You have to fill out all sorts of paperwork and meet all sorts of requirements. So I used to work in nonprofits, and that means other people had to donate money in order to pay my salary. Now I run a business, and I've been able to be very successful at that. And so now my money goes to support all sorts of nonprofits all over the world, right? That's a better route, I think. And I'll just say one more thing, and then I'll hand over the mic. Think about it this way. If everybody ran a nonprofit, where would the money for the nonprofits come from? Right? The world doesn't need another nonprofit. There's already enough nonprofits. What they need is people who are successful enough to support those nonprofits, to contribute to those nonprofits, to volunteer at those nonprofits. And you would probably have far more of an impact volunteering at an existing one, donating to an existing one, than you would starting a new one. And maybe not. Maybe you're going to do something brand new the world has never heard of, but that's probably not true. All right.
Well, that's the end of this panel. Go ahead, Suzanne.
I would say, first of all, what he said, don't. Most people think of, I'm going to start a nonprofit. They see it as, oh, we're going to start this like a club we did in high school, and that's what it is. You have to realize a nonprofit is a business. You're starting a business, so you have all the complications, everything you're going to have to do to start a business, with a ton of extra paperwork and complications and legal matters that you are responsible for. So there's the...
We've reconnected.
So okay, good. Let's not let cats get between us. As Dave said, if you have a passion, something you want to work with, first step you really want to do is see, is someone already doing this, and can I partner with them? If I am passionate about, I really want to do something, is there someone I can partner with, work for, whatever? Do the homework to make sure that no one else is doing what you want to do before you even start thinking about it. If you find that, okay, no one is doing this, you want to understand, am I doing something locally? Are we starting a little community thing? Or am I trying to build a business that I want to expand to go worldwide? If it is a little community thing, you have to ask, do we actually need a nonprofit? There are other options. So we are actually not a nonprofit. Creative Crisis Leadership is not yet filed for the 501c3 status. We are under fiscal sponsorship. In fact, HIP, Heroic Imagination Project, was our first fiscal sponsor. We left them for various reasons that we can discuss in private. But it won't come between us. Fiscal sponsorship is where you can register with another nonprofit and you can be one of their projects. I'm under a fiscal sponsorship for a social good fund, another nonprofit whose mission is to provide fiscal sponsorship to community-based projects. So their job is to do all the paperwork. If we hire employees, we're employees, they're employees. They do all the taxes. They do all that legal stuff, and we can focus on building the program. Because that's the first step. You've got to make sure you have a program, something to deliver. And you don't want to be managing, doing all the administrative stuff. You need to be out there raising money, not managing the money, not talking to bookkeepers, not figuring out what tax forms you have to file, not make sure you're compliant with all of that until you sort of have a certain critical mass. If you are a small community project, you may never need to file. You can operate under fiscal sponsorship if you just need someone to hold money tax-free that people like Dave can donate to. And don't open your own nonprofit.
Jamie, what's your experience been so far?
Well, actually, I also have to correct you that I don't have a nonprofit either. I work with a lot of them, though.
Right.
And one in particular, I decided to take advice from. And I don't know if I can agree completely with the don't do a nonprofit thing, because what I was told is that as long as you're extremely passionate about that, and I think a lot of people take for granted how passionate nonprofit members are, that if you're that passionate about it and it's something that's not being done in your community, then you should go for it. The people that I've been advising with about my nonprofit questions feel very strongly about their cause, and they're very happy that they've done it, even though there's all that work.
Can you give some examples of the nonprofits you are working with?
Yes.
And what they do?
Yeah. Well, I'm working with a couple nonprofits locally in Kalamazoo. One of them is Griffin Place, which is a suicide prevention mainly place that also has like crisis counseling, crisis prevention, and like a 211 hotline. We just did a suicide prevention walk that we sponsored, and our pumpkin patch roast is the one that goes to them. And we started that last year along with the Community Healing Centers, which was a nonprofit that had lost some funding recently. And that was one of the reasons why we decided to do both of those nonprofits. So that pumpkin patch one actually goes 50 cents to each one, and it's worked out well because they go hand in hand with each other. So they're both similar enough that I was able to kind of pair them up. And I've done the same thing with a couple animal rescues, the Animal Rescue Project and the Kalamazoo Animal Rescue. That's the newest one. So we're all kind of working together to do events that involve everyone. So we get the community involved, we get those businesses involved, or those nonprofits involved, and then I come in and support them.
Great. So I think looking back on my hero career, I suppose, people were urging me very early on to start a nonprofit, and I resisted, and particularly had one person say, "You don't need all that drama and all that excess." But I found it important at one point to start that nonprofit because it got to a point where we needed a bigger team. It wasn't going to just work with me. So, Dave, can you talk about? You've talked about the barriers, especially around the tax, the tax elements, the law, the paperwork, and the fundraising, and the fundraising is one of those big obstacles and big time sucks. What else do you need to get in place, or can talk us through that? What a board is and what they need to be doing, and what other things you need to get set before you even think about submitting any paperwork.
Well, yeah, the board's a really crucial part because a lot of people, this is a huge thing that people don't understand. When you get a nonprofit board in place, they're now the boss. They're now in charge. You're not. Matt HIP has a board. And, you know, HIP, the board of the nonprofit is the boss of the nonprofit. There we go. So, and this happened to one of the Hero Roundtable participants. They were actually pushed out by their own board, right? They were actually pushed out by their own board from the nonprofit they founded. So imagine that. You started the organization because you were passionate about it. You raised awareness, raised money, made it happen, and then these people that you brought in to help decided they think they could do it better without you. So that's a really important thing to understand about nonprofits. From a legal standpoint, they are now in charge of the nonprofit. The board of directors is in charge of the nonprofit. And so that's a really crucial part. So that's part of it. Who would be on my board? Does there need to be a board? And again, going back to passionate and all those things, again, you can even start doing all of those things without creating the nonprofit structure. People can volunteer to help out with projects without there needing to be a nonprofit. It just can't be something that's lining your pockets as a business owner. But that's a big part. Volunteering is a big reason to have a nonprofit. The other one is people's ability that when they do give you money, they get the tax benefit, right? If you just say, hey, I'm doing good stuff, and if you write me a check, I'll make sure to keep adding it on to the good stuff I do. Some people will do that. A lot of people would be like, okay, to your point, is there a real nonprofit I can send it to as an intermediary, which is a great option. And again, another example of partnership. Do I need to start one, or should I partner with an existing one? And the other one is, though, people want the tax benefit from it, and they won't do it. And they also want the legitimacy of it. When I get, sometimes I think GoFundMe's a good thing, but sometimes, someone's like my friends, brothers, roommates, cousin knows somebody who got in a car accident and needs $80,000. And I'm like, I don't feel great about this at all. And so that nonprofit status can give people some comfort in donating to you and create some legitimacy as well.
I think, Susanne, can you talk a little bit about selecting a board and the role that board... Why am I talking into that?
I don't know. You've got too many mics there. Because your watch isn't working. Yeah.
The board members, it's not a matter of just getting people who agree with you and to come along for the ride. Certainly lots of people make that mistake as well. So what are you looking for in a board, in those people, some key pieces?
Well, I think first you want to talk about the different stages of a board. If you're starting, you're going to be starting with what I call a founding board, the 3 people or whatever your state requires. Chances are you're going to need to go past that. And one of the reasons many nonprofits fail is because they never understand that the board has to develop past these first 3 people. A lot of people file their paperwork with, oh, my husband and my brother we list on the board. That's going to fail because they're not really passionate, they're not doing the work, and they're sort of too ingrown. So you want to find that first set of people who are passionate and who can help actually do the work of writing the initial stuff and who will help with whatever needs to be done to get the initial fundraising started and so on. Then the next boards, you want to look at where does this board need to go? As Dave says, this is the core. This is the heart of the nonprofit. And until you get big, they need to be an operational board. They need to be out there doing fundraising. The advice I've gotten is everyone needs to be passionate about your cause. Because you need them to be making the phone calls. You need them to stay up late at night to do whatever it is that needs to be done. And then you have to consider, I want diversity. I want diversity across everything I can get. But I do need to have, who's going to be my legal advisor or knows the people who's going to get me the legal people? Who's going to get me the who knows about fundraising or marketing? They may not be the expert on that, but they know someone and they are willing to step up and say, I will look after this area. So what are all those different positions you need? A lot of fun as new nonprofits making the mistake of bringing in experts in the field that they want, who know nothing about running a business, right? When you get a little more mature, you can build a big board and you can get the big names on it who will get your name out there. But for that operational board, that stage, keep it to people who do the work. Put all the big names, like Dave, who's going to be on my advisory board, I hope. I think, Matt, you are one of my advisors. They're on my advisory council. They are not actually on the board of directors because they don't have the time to do the work, but they're willing to give me the advice and let their names be used.
This is going to sound crass and maybe lead to a new title for this panel. But one of the biggest answers to who should be on the board is rich people and people who know rich people. Again, I can't emphasize this enough, and I did this for years and years and years, and I taught this for years and years and years. The biggest problem you're going to have in running your nonprofit is finding the money to do what it is that you need to do. And one of the things that the board needs to be doing so you can run the nonprofit, to your point, is making sure it's funded. And one of the ways to do that is to try to raise money. The other one is for them to give it themselves. And also, they shouldn't be raising the money if they are not giving it themselves, right? Or in this, in Matt's case, he's got people, donating their time and services, which is just as valuable, right? If you don't have to buy it because someone's doing it, then that's even better. If someone gives you a car instead of buying you a car, that's fine if they sell cars, right? But that becomes the biggest thing. And the other thing, and this is where this crosses over back into business again, the Girl Scouts can help a lot of girls because they sell a lot of cookies. They have a business inside the nonprofit that prevents them from spending all of their time raising money for Girl Scouts. And you don't have to care about the Girl Scouts to support the Girl Scouts. You just have to not care about your health and the way that you look, right? And you're going to put those Thin Mints in the freezer, and you're going to say you bought extra boxes, and you're going to save them, and you're going to eat them all and break your teeth while they're still frozen because you don't have any self-control, but you're supporting a good cause. And so that's another big part. If you do start the nonprofit, one of the questions, especially with the board, should be, what is our sustainability plan? And how will we generate revenue for this? So I used to help people with disabilities to get job opportunities. One of the ways we funded that was by doing real work for real companies who could pay us real wages to do that work, and then we could employ people with disabilities. Sitting around saying, I'm going to get the money donated. So again, money, you might not like me talking about it, but money is the biggest challenge. And so for board members, you need at least one person who it's no big deal. I saw one the other day, it blew my mind. They're trying to raise $500,000 for this thing at this church. And they have a little ticker, and they're currently at $120. Okay? You don't even tell people that you're raising $500,000 until you have somebody who's going to give you $100,000. Does that make sense? And if you don't know anybody who can give you $100,000 and you don't have anybody on your board who can give you $100,000, you will never raise $500,000, okay? And so that's one of the secrets is you get the board members who have that influence. They know people at the Chamber of Commerce. They're involved at the country club, those kinds of things. And you might think that's crass or that's not why you got into this. But this is an organization that has to pay the bills or it goes out of business just like any business goes out of business. And so these are just the biggest issues I've seen people have. Your love and your passion only go as far as your ability to, or as you see here, you make it a business. The business was to help your family member have a job, and now they have a job. And when you make money, they make money, and you're succeeding by having a business that works, right? So that's the value there. So rich people.
Yeah, I would add to that a little bit. I'll first ask a question. Do they need to be on the board?
Yeah, sure.
Because on the board, you've got, again, they're your boss now. Right. I know a lot of nonprofits will say, well, they'll work for us, but we create this. Do they really need to be board members? I think it's something you have to ask. The other thing to this is the diversity is people who are not like you. I am desperately looking for people who are not like me because I'm an introvert. I love Jaheen's message of the closed mouth doesn't get fed. I am that closed mouth. I need people who will get out there and talk us up and do all of that and get me the connections. I am great when you put me in front of an audience. I am the deal closer. People believe in me, but I am not the deal opener. And I desperately need those deal openers out there. So that's what one role I absolutely want on my board. People who are different in these ways for me, do the things I can't do.
Yeah. I think, to Dave's point as well, I think that traditionally there was an idea that if you were on the board, you either gave money, got money, or got off the board, right? That was the thing. And I think to your point about money too, making a business, I worked at a YMCA camp, and the director there, Fritz Cheek, taught me right from the start, he didn't ever budget donated money. The budget was based on program income. You sell summer camp spots, you sell school visits, then you can spend that money. Anything else that comes in is gravy and great, but you don't budget according to hoping that you're going to make some money, which was super sound advice and not very common at that time. A lot of places were relying on grant money or donor money, and then if it didn't arrive, somebody's gone. Somebody's lost their job because you didn't get where you were supposed to go.
Yeah, I want to pick up on that point of some nonprofits require that their board members donate. And I think you have to be careful that you have board members donate financially or possibly in kind, because one of the people you want eventually on your board as soon as you can get it is members of your constituency. You know, people to represent the people you're trying to help. You want their voice in there to be heard. And often, many nonprofits are not out there trying to help those rich people that we want on our boards. So you don't want to make it a requirement and put another barrier to entry for people you need to have represented.
So I'm going to echo what Matt said. So one of the problems with donations is it turns you into a gambler, okay? If you have to earn the money through campers and through visits, then you have to have a decent camp that someone's going to sign up for and pay for. You have to have a camp that somebody wants to visit. If you're just hoping somebody will drop $1 million on you, then you could have the shittiest camp on earth, right? You don't have to update things, you don't have to fix things, you don't have to pay your staff well, you don't have to clean up, you don't have to provide a good experience, you don't have to care if people are having a good time. And it creates a really bad cycle of people kind of sort of hoping that someone's going to save them. And then when they do, oh, we got $1 million, what are we going to spend it on? Then it's gone. And it literally makes you a gambler. It makes you an addict, and then you're just waiting for the next one, hoping for the next one, trying to find the next one, instead of having a real sustainable plan for running your organization based on, donations go to capital projects, but we have to be able to fund our operation, because at some point, it's a nonprofit for you. It's somebody else's job, somebody else's livelihood. It's something that a constituent depends on. It's not something to sort of play games with. And so even if you do get donations, even if you are a nonprofit, you need an actual, what are we going to do to generate revenue? I'll tell you my favorite story about that. The Denver Zoo, their biggest cost. What is the biggest cost at a zoo? Number one cost at a zoo. That's the number two cost, right? So the number one cost is feeding the animals. The number two cost, named that way for that reason, is cleaning up the doo-doo. You can't just throw it in the trash, okay? You don't just put it in a poop bag. So they have to pay tons of money, and literally it's tons of stuff. Imagine what an elephant produces in a day. So they have this huge problem. This huge cost, right? It's costing them all this money every year, and they invented something called Zoo-Doo. And so what they do is they take the exotic animal poo, they turn it into fertilizer that you can buy for your garden or for your house. They even went from selling bags of it to then selling little shapes of like a bunny that you can put like in your potted plant at home, and it slowly decomposes into your plant over time. It's a slow release fertilizer that looks like a cute little animal made of poop. So they turned their number two cost, their second biggest expense. Yeah, Joe, it took Joe a while. Some of you were there. Some of you were there at the beginning. Joe just jumped in with us. They turned their number two cost into one of their biggest revenue sources. And again, a zoo is a good model. If people aren't coming to the zoo, and sure, they have lots of donors, but if people aren't coming to the zoo, if people aren't paying those entry fees, and think about how many people work at a zoo and how many people are reliant on that. So you have to have a sustainability plan, and you have to have at some point we're going to make money because we earned it, because we're doing something well enough that someone will pay us for it. Even if we're giving things away for free and serving people who can't pay, there has to be some kind of program for sustainability.
Yeah. Jamie, have you got any thoughts, advice on the balance between giving up all your time for your passion project and keeping yourself mentally well? Because I think people, there's a real habit of jumping into this passion project, and they dedicate their life to it, and it gets romanticized as well, right? People talk about, I worked 18 hours a day to get this thing going, and da da da. And we all know it's not good. That's not a good lifestyle. But it's easy to get into that trap and feel that you're obliged to do all of that work because of the type of work you're doing.
Well, you kind of are obliged, actually. If you're the one that's, started it, came up with it, and that's your passion project, it's surrounding yourself with the other people that are just as passionate as you, which was already said. Those people are going to be the ones that help you and support you when you are exhausted. And that's basically it.
What? Yeah, go.
You swim the Golden Gate.
You swim the Golden Gate.
You spend all of, make sure you have some goal that I have to go swim. There's just no, I have to go train.
And that just removes you from the mentally you're checking
right,
out for a bit.
Right, and you give something that forces you to step out and that you enjoy and that gets you out of it.
Yeah. Dave?
Well, and if you can't get that support, if you can't get a board, if you can't get enough donors, if you have to do it all yourself, that's telling you something, and it's telling you that you're excited about it and not enough other people are, or you're not good at explaining it, or there's some other issue there, and that's giving you feedback. Okay, I love this, but nobody else does. I care about this, but nobody else does, or not enough people do to make this work. And so then maybe don't spend 18 hours, spend 12 and look at what you could be doing differently, or decide maybe this isn't, all sorts of things don't work out. Maybe this isn't, one of the reasons I'm a professional speaker that talks about the stuff I talk about is because I used to teach people how to make money in their nonprofit so that they didn't have to be reliant on donations that were unreliable, or grants, which were difficult to get and somewhat problematic and wouldn't probably fund you anyway. And the number one feedback after those sessions was, that was great and super helpful. We'd love to hire you to help us do this, but we don't have any money. And unfortunately, I can't feed my family on that was good, but we don't have any money. And so I started talking to people who had money. And now I have a lot of money that I can give to people who need money and who are doing good things. I'll make one quick pitch because we have a lot of good people in here. And it's not. I guess I won't. It's the opposite of a pitch. So it was my 50th birthday on Sunday, and just happy to still be here. And I wanted to do something different, and so if you look me up on Facebook. I made a post on Sunday, and it says that I want to give $50 to your nonprofit. So for the next 365 days, now it's 362. I've given 3 days so far. I'm giving $50 away to whatever nonprofit you care about, right? And so go on there, post your nonprofit. Don't tell me in the hallway. I'm not trying to remember your stupid nonprofit. Put it on that post and make a link to the donations page. Some guy was just like, my dad died from cancer. I'm like, that is not good, but I need a fucking donation link. I'm going to do this 365 times. I'm not researching where that should be, right?
Suzanne's got a card for her
not
non-profit.
looking at your damn card. You go on the...
Take it anyway.
But that's the journey, right? I was in the nonprofits because I cared about people. I was passionate about helping people with disabilities. And here's the crazy thing that it comes all the way around to. This year, I got paid a ton of money to go speak at a school for kids with learning differences. People pay me money now to help the people because my message is about helping people, caring about people, making people's lives better. And now I do that as a business and I'm doing the mission, right? And then I can take the money and support all sorts of other missions. So I still think it ultimately comes down to find what you're passionate about, but find where that intersects somehow with at least you being able to make a living. Because even if all you do is I looked it up the other day, what does it take to be a philanthropist? And it's really just you give money to people. And if you just give 1% of your paycheck to make the world a better place, you're a philanthropist and you're making the world a better place, and you didn't have to start a nonprofit, you just had to stay employed, right? And do a decent job, get a promotion, and help the people. Just in this room, there's enough nonprofits for you to give your money to. You don't probably need to start another one. Don't do it. Don't do it.
So thank you, panel, for completely 180 degrees that panel session. But I think there were some lessons there, and I do think there's room for more nonprofits, but I think there's so many barriers to entry that you have to really consider before you go ahead. So thank you, panel.